Before any major piece of infrastructure gets built, a tunnel, a power plant, a city, even a space mission, the real project isn't concrete or steel. It starts as a document. This document is called a feasibility study. A feasibility study is a systems level test of a project's survival. Engineers ask whether it can physically stand, economists ask whether people will use it, environmental teams test how badly it will damage the surrounding environment, lawyers test whether it can legally be executed, and the finance teams ask whether the numbers will survive under stress. It's not just a report, it's the project's first and most important version. Because once construction begins, everything becomes exponentially more expensive. Changing a railway alignment on a map costs nothing. Changing it after land has been acquired might cost you billions. This is the final checkpoint before reality takes over. When it fails, the consequences no longer stay on paper. And when this step is rushed, ignored, or politicized, history shows what follows. The English Channel is one of the busiest and most strategically important bodies of water on Earth, separating the British Isles from mainland Europe while carrying enormous volumes of trade, travel, and military traffic. For centuries, it was considered a permanent natural barrier until engineers attempted to cross it from below. Early proposals followed the shortest route between Britain and France. It looked cheaper and, well, it was more direct. But a deeper feasibility analysis discovered unstable geology and dangerous water ingress zones along that path. The route was then redesigned through more stable chalk formations. This decision may have increased cost and time, but prevented what would almost certainly have been catastrophic flooding during construction. Without that redesign, the tunnel probably wouldn't exist today. Feasibility didn't make the project cheaper, it made the project possible. The Las Vegas Sphere was announced in 2018 as a bold new category of building. A fully immersive entertainment venue unlike anything the world had ever seen before. Backed by billionaire James Dolan, the plan was to create a completely new kind of landmark on the Las Vegas Strip. Part concert hall, part cinema, and part technology madness. Unlike the English Channel, the Sphere faced no geological uncertainty, no hostile terrain, and no physical barriers that threatened its existence. Its challenge was not whether it could be built, but whether it should be built and at that scale. On paper, the economics worked, but what the original feasibility work failed to capture was how violently the economics could unravel once reality had arrived. The project, originally estimated at $1.2 billion, had ended up costing an eye-watering $2.3 billion by the time doors had opened. On opening night, the average ticket costed around $391. That number alone reflects just how optimistic the planners were about long-term demand. But inside the first fiscal year, the financial structure collapsed under its own weight. A $98.4 million loss in quarter 1, a $194 million loss in quarter 2, and in less than 12 months, they had burnt over $500 million in just operating losses. The core issue wasn't popularity. It was that the initial business model had been designed for a reality that didn't exist. Large gaps appeared between major shows, revenue splits were deeply unfavorable. In the opening U2 residency, the band reportedly captured around 90% of the ticket revenue. Meanwhile, even proprietary content required extraordinary reinvestment. The Wizard of the Oz adaptation alone costed around $80 million to produce, just 80 minutes of material, because the content itself had to be reinvented for the Sphere's unique format. The building was functioning, the demand was real, but the feasibility assumption about utilization, margins, and long-term sustainability were wrong, and the financial damage was immediate. Sometimes the cost of getting feasibility wrong is more than financial. Sometimes the disaster is permanent. Chernobyl is one of the most consequential engineering failures in human history. In the 1970s, the Soviet Union began constructing the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, as a part of a massive push to electrify its western territories and to project technological dominance. The site in northern Ukraine was chosen for its access to water, rail, and distance from major population centers. On the surface, it appeared ideal. The project moved quickly, the reactors were commissioned on schedule, and on paper, the system satisfied every formal requirement. What the feasibility process never really confronted was what would happen when the system stopped behaving normally. At lower power, the RBMK reactor became unstable. Its control rods made the instability worse. Its safety systems were incomplete, and unlike most Western reactors, its containment structure was never designed to withstand a catastrophic internal failure. The risks were known, they were documented, but they were minimized inside technical reviews, political oversight, and safety assessments. In the end, the reactor was approved based on theory, not on reality. On April 26, 1986, during a routine safety tests, those assumptions collapsed. The reactor surged, the core exploded, the roof was blown off. Radioactive material was ejected directly into the atmosphere. Over 300,000 people were permanently displaced. An exclusion zone the size of a major city was created. Large regions of Europe were contaminated, and the environmental and human damage will persist for generations to come. The plant had been built, the deadlines had been met, the power had been delivered, but the feasibility work failed at its most critical responsibility, to model the consequences of extreme failure. This was not a construction failure, it was a technical, risk, and institutional feasibility failure. Feasibility studies are not about optimism, they are about survival. They don't exist to slow ambition, they exist to protect it from reality. The Channel Tunnel survived because feasibility forced a redesign. The Spear bled because feasibility misread the economics. Chernobyl collapsed because feasibility ignored the consequences of failure. Every mega project is a gamble, and the feasibility study is the only moment where the odds can still be changed.